let's dive on in. What goes around comes back around, and that is with sector momentum. Perfect example of that was the cannabis sector this week. Why I list all these sectors, AI, Bitcoin, EV, cannabis, COVID, gold, banking? Because all of them have a group of stocks in there that all move together when the sector moves. And we're going to go over one perfectly this week because we literally got what goes around comes back around. Huge spikes in plenty of cannabis stocks this week because they came out with news last week. It was actually, when was it? It was last Wednesday. Yeah, last Wednesday. So exactly a week ago is when they dropped this news, and the momentum is still going into a week later. I do think it's going to slow down a little bit, but after it slows down, I believe we can curl back up and keep going. But the beauty about the sector momentum is sometimes it just keeps going for a while. So I don't want to doubt it. I really don't want to doubt it. I just know when the first red day comes, we need to see some consolidation for a day or two, and then the curl back, and that's really how you can profit. MSOS is the sector leader, and it started to push 30% plus on last Wednesday, and it pushed off the news that the U.S. Health Department was debating on possibly bringing cannabis from a Schedule 1 drug, which is heroin, acid, crazy drugs, cocaine I think's on there, down to a Schedule 3 drug, which is not that big of a deal. Now, why this is a big deal is because if it goes to a Schedule 3 drug, it can now become federally legal. And if it becomes federally legal and a Schedule 3 drug, now pharmaceutical companies can start to buy in. Now, most cannabis consumers or most cannabis people that are passionate about the product, they don't want it to be a Schedule 1 drug, but at the same time, I don't know if they want it to be a Schedule 3 drug, because the problem with that is you have large companies, pharmaceutical companies, that are now going to be able to step in once it becomes a Schedule 3 drug, and they're going to be able to cure certain cancers or certain kind of symptoms that people cure with cannabis, and that's going to actually bring big companies like Pfizer, all those huge pharmaceutical companies, to start buying into this industry. And I think there will be, medical marijuana, and then I think there'll be pharmaceutical marijuana that'll soon come, and the pharmaceutical one will probably eventually take over because that's where the money's at. The only thing is I don't know how much passion they're going to have compared to these individuals that literally are passionate about the product, but that's really what's going on. So the Schedule 3 thing could be a good thing for the industry, could definitely bring more revenue, and that's why the stock's spiking. But at the same time, if you're a passionate smoker, or if you do that, you really care about the product, some people don't think it's the best idea for these huge companies that come in. Now, my older brother, personally, I got to see him cure, not completely cure or take it away, but he actually deals with Crohn's, and it's an unfortunate stomach disease. And he actually was able to kind of dim down his symptoms, or dim down his flare-ups that he was having in his stomach from cannabis. He was literally ingesting cannabis oil, and it was helping him tremendously. Now, you can't do that right now if it's a Schedule 1 drug, and that's really that's why this is such big news. For it to become a Schedule 3 drug, it would actually be able to become tested and in labs, and then you could come out with medicines that can cure Crohn's, or not cure Crohn's, but at least slow down the flare-ups, and stuff like that is tremendous. It will bring so much revenue in to these companies that are decide to start this up. So that's why this is such big news for those of you guys that are wondering what's the big deal about a drug going from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, especially a drug like cannabis, and that is the big reason. I'm pretty sure it was all the way back in like the 50s when Nixon was the president, or the 60s. I'm not exactly sure when the fuck he was the president, but when he was the president is when it became a Schedule 1 drug, and that was some old school shit, like really old school shit. Like, come on. What is he thinking? So it's been like that for now, like 40 plus years. And now that we're actually getting a little more innovating, and especially that it's becoming medical in plenty of states, I think it's over 15, it might even be 20 plus states that are now medical. So it's amazing how much this has grown, and now it continues to show signs that it might continue to grow. Who knows if this is really going to happen, and who knows when the news is going to break out that they do it. But if they do end up doing it, the market's going to go crazy again. I mean, these stocks were literally so high a year ago, and they're not even close to back where they were a year ago. So they have so much room to run, the cannabis stocks. And if I would love to see like another day or two of consolidation and this thing to start back up with more news. That would really be the ideal situation. Now we're on like 5 straight green days, as you can see with the sector leader here. So that's the sector leader, MSOS. It's pretty much an ETF of all the cannabis companies, well, mainly the big OTC ones. And as you can see, like I said, not even a year ago, this thing was at $12.60. And then it took a complete nosedive all the way to $6. So from $14.60 to $6, what a nosedive. And it does have the potential to come back. I mean, I don't know if it's going to continue to go straight up. The beauty about it is it went up 2 days, had this red day, and then it continued to spike like crazy. So you never know. You really never know. It can definitely keep going. What I would love to see is it comes down, settles above this like 750 area, and then curls back up and really starts to run again. That's really what I would love. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's got so much room to go. And if you look at all the long-term cannabis stocks, the OTC ones, they have so much room to go too. So there's a lot of potential that's here. And this webinar is going to mainly be about that potential and how we're going to be able to take advantage of it when it does come around. Now, it's not just going to be the cannabis stocks, because any sector momentum, this will work for. So pay attention to this chapter or this webinar, because this webinar is solely going to be about how you take advantage of sector momentum, how we did personally this week, and then how you guys can in the future if you missed some of these moves. So this is our watch list that we have. You always want to have one watch list with all the cannabis stocks. This is pretty much most of the cannabis stocks on there that we have. MJNA. But for the most part, all of these have been around for 6+ years. Even the listed stocks. So a lot of these stocks have been around forever. So just continue to add. When you find a new cannabis stock, just add it to your watch list. But this is pretty much all of the cannabis stocks that we have on there. What's amazing about this week is we actually went 6 for 6. Some of the wins were smaller wins, but we had 3 nice-sized wins on cannabis stocks, and then we had 3 smaller wins on cannabis stocks that weren't too crazy. But either way, all together, we were able to profit over $2650. So really good work there, taking advantage of stocks. But like I said before, definitely could have been better with staying a little more patient. I haven't really messed with sector momentum in a while, so staying patient is huge, 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 huge. And you for sure want to stay patient when this stuff comes around, and you also want to size up. Don't be shy to size up. Here are all the wins. Those are the 6 wins that we have there. You have CRLBF, that was last Wednesday. We had CGC, small win there. You had a small win on GTBF. AYRWF was a nice sized win, but we didn't barely had any size, so we didn't really get our full size that we wanted, but still ended up winning 250. And then our 2 really big wins were CurlF and TCNNF. Both of those are stocks that we know really well. Both of those are dispensaries that are down here in South Florida. They always have lines in them, so that's something that we really know about. We know about these companies. We'll talk about our biggest win, which is CurlF, CURLF, and we'll talk about how we took advantage of that one. So Curleaf, it's been around for a while now. They're a dispensary down here in South Florida, like I was saying. Honestly, not my favorite. They're definitely not the best at all. Sorry. I wouldn't recommend them compared to some of the other ones down here, but we'll go over it just to show you guys how we took advantage of it. All right, so here it is. So last Wednesday at about noon is when the news came out. Most of the cannabis stocks took a big spike just like this. Then they took a big dip, and then they just settled out. Huge spike, huge dip, settle out. Perfect support level of 310, so really not risking much and buying it at the end of the day right around 313-ish, 314-ish area. Let me see to make sure. 312. So 312 was our spot that we got in right around there. And then we got a decent close up by 320. Not really too profitable right there, but up slightly. And that's what you want to see when you're going overnight. The next morning, we had a gap up from MSOS, and that's what you want to see. Now, what I'm not proud of myself for is I did not stay patient at all. I mean, we literally missed this whole run up. We pretty much bought it, ended up selling it when it pushed in the morning. It actually pushed to 350, and we were able to get out right around 340. So we did get out at a good spot in the morning. When you look at the morning spike, yeah, it was a really good spot. I mean, it gapped up, and then it pushed up instantly, and when it pushed up instantly, we were able to sell in that big push up. So it was a good spot in the morning for the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then after the first 30 minutes went, it broke high day. And honestly, we probably should have got back in. With the sector momentum, this is something you don't want to be shy to do. You want to keep sizing in. And I'd say I regret that for sure, not buying in right there. But we were able to buy right here, sell at the top of this wick, and then it continued to run. Broke high a day, and even if you got in around 340, sold 390, that's 15 more percent you could have made on your money. So we were able to profit 15%, I'm pretty sure. It was 10%. So we profited 10%, but we could have profited 25%. So we definitely left a lot on the table there. And now when you see the sector momentum, and especially when you see the sector leader, which is MSOS, spiking, you can be as patient as you want. I mean, this thing was never down on us, so we should have been a little better with the patience here. I mean, shit, if we bought it at 310 and we were able to sell around 390, I mean, that is a almost 30% win. I mean, that really could have elevated our account. So there are ways that you can really elevate your account, especially in these kind of times. This is how you're going to grow your small account, is when you get these big runs like this. So try to take advantage of these big runs when they come around. And like I said, I don't think they're going to be done. I think they'll be around for a little bit. So be ready for it. But next time it comes around, sell half maybe, hold the other half for a rip. That would be my recommendation. If you are nervous and you want to grab some profit, I'd say a good idea is sell half maybe if you want on the open, or you just stick to the cut. I mean, if anything, you cut at 320 and you win no matter what. You just won't win as much, but still, you have the potential especially when sector momentum is around, to make a lot more, and that's really what it's all about. And we did the same thing with the next one too, TCNNF. So we'll go over TCNFF as well. I mean, another situation where we kind of got in on a dip, which we got in on a great spot. This was one of the best spots you could have got in, right around 410, 413. Let me see to make sure. Yeah, 410. So we had an ideal spot. We didn't have a big size in this one, but we had a great spot in this one. So we had a picture perfect spot. We really didn't need to be selling, but we ended up getting in at 410. Picture perfect spot. It ends up pushing all the way back to 450 by the end of the day, and then it gaps up the next morning. We ended up selling the gap up once again, and like I said, it could have been a lot better, because if you look at this whole situation, the sector momentum is going to push itself. And even if you want to just sell half, that's what I'd recommend. Or you don't sell any. But if anything, just use green to red as cut. So what I mean by that is the stock opened at 460 and it shot up. If anything, you just use 460, 458 as cut. So if it drops back below that spot, you get out, you still win with the profit. If it never does that, it has the strength to continue, then you have the chance to make this one all the way to 580. So you'd have a chance to make another 20% on this one. So we made 15%, but we could have made 35% on this one. So definitely ways we can improve here, and can't highlight that enough, especially in sector momentum. That's kind of like upset, even though we had such a great week, kind of a little upset at myself that this is how we took advantage of it, because shit, it's crazy, but it is what it is. It is what it is. So nice end up situation though. Either way, nice 2 bags in TCNF, nice bag in Curl F. Both of them sector momentum. As you can see, the next day, both of them spiked like crazy. So that is the first example of the start of the sector momentum. Now, something I want to highlight though before I move on is if you miss these big spikes, you just gotta wait for pullbacks. Because yeah, I missed the big spikes and I was a little upset at myself. But if you sit there and you bitch at yourself and you complain and you moan, you're never gonna be ready. You're gonna fuck your mindset up for the next trade. And you always want to be prepared for the next trade, because that's really how you grow your account. You got to continue to grow. So don't get too hyped when you win too much. Don't get too down on yourself when you lose too much. Try to settle yourself in the middle. And don't get too down on yourself if a stock goes without you, because that can happen all the time. So being patient about that, and trying to wait for those moments. And then when they do come around, just make sure to go after them. So that's TCNNF, and that is Curl F right there. The next one I'm going to go over is how you can take advantage of sector momentum in other ways. So it's not just the first Green Day play that you can profit off of. When there's momentum and you are over PDT, if you're under PDT, this is going to be a little harder. But if you're over PDT and you're ready to swing, you got to be swinging. Like, you can't pump the brakes in these kind of times. You always want to be sitting there in front of your screens. You always want to be grabbing the bags when you can. And how do you do that? You buy the dips. So anytime that you get a big dip, you try to buy that. Try to have a good cut, obviously. Like any time that you get in a trade, you want to be able to have a good risk. But you got to buy the dips when things dip. And then when things start to pop, you're now bought the dip and you now are in great action. So buying the dip is one big advantage to sector momentum, because what happens is people start to short during sector momentum, and you have people that are wrong about their short because they don't realize that there's a huge run up that's about to happen. And when they don't cover their shorts and they get caught, then the stock spikes even more. So you have a lot of people that were shorting, especially the cannabis sector. It's been up so much. It's been down so much recently, and every time it has a first green day, it falls. So everybody was probably shorting these stocks, and every time they got a big dip, if you were able to buy it, you were fighting against the shorts. And then once the dip bounced, now you have the shorts on their heels, and then you have the stock being able to spike even more than it usually does. So always got to be prepared. So the first way to be prepared, buy the dips. When you get big midday dips or big end of the day dips, buy those dips, take them overnight. Always great that thing to do, especially in sector momentum. The next thing I highly recommend, and we're going to go over an example of both of these, is to find the delayed stock. I just showed you a full watch list of all the cannabis stocks right here, and all these cannabis stocks right here all made a move. They all made a move together, literally. Every single one of them spiked huge. But what I do want to point out is the fact that some of them will spike later than the others. A good example of that would be VRNOF, AYRWF. MJNA is a great example of that. It's still just starting to spike, even though all these other ones got a huge spike. MJNA took a couple days to start spiking. So all of these are great examples of big sector momentum and how you take advantage of it. So the first example I'll do is buy the dip. We went over this slightly last week, but I'll go over it again just because the sector momentum kept going on into this week. And that's CRLBF, that's Cresco Labs. They actually have the dispensary Sunnyside, that's down here in South Florida, and this is how you're going to take advantage of buying the dip. So you have a huge spike. The stock spiked from $1 to $1.35. I mean, if you look at the stock now, it went to the 250s. So this thing went from $1 to 250 in the span of 5 days. Absolutely unreal gains that you could have made on this stock. But we are taking advantage of the dip and the day trade. I mean, even if you bought this dip and you held this dip all the way until now, you would be up 150%. So there's so much potential that happens when there's sector momentum. But with CRLBF, I love the spike that it had. We missed the spike from $1 to $1.35, so a 35% spike. Then it came right back down to $1.15, and $1.15 is clear support. We were able to get in as it came back down right here, right around 116, 115. Let me see if perfect example. 116. So we were able to get in at 116. I mean, you get in at 116, you have that 115, 114 as cut. You're risking 2 cents. You're barely risking anything in sector momentum. I mean, that is beautiful right there. With us, we weren't sure how long this was going to last. I mean, we wanted to make sure we were grabbing bags, number one, but also, like I said earlier, every time a cannabis stock spiked, it came back down the next day. So we had no clue how long this was going to last. I wish I stayed a little more patient with this. But with CRLBF, we actually got in, and then we actually got out on this big spike all the way up to 124, I think it was. Yeah, 124. So we were able to get in and out in this situation in the span of minutes, honestly. We were able to get in around 1:30. We were able to get out before 2 o'clock. So it was like a 10-minute trade where we were able to make just about $500. So with that, we were like, let's take it. But that was our first ever glimpse of sector momentum. But the beauty about this is the first example of how you take advantage of sector momentum is, yes, you're going to miss the spike because the spike's going to happen, and it's almost impossible to catch the spike. But you are going to be able to catch a dip, and that's a great example of it right here. Catch the dip. You don't have to catch the initial dip, but if you do, buy 115, use 114 as cut. You're literally risking a cent. If you did miss it, be more patient. Try to wait for the end of the day. But if it does come right back down to that spot and you see the sector momentum, I'd say that's the perfect time to get in. So that's where we were able to get in, almost a picture perfect time, and we were able to get out at a really good spot on the day. It did end up continuing, and like I said, it's all the way up to the 240s, 250s now. So much potential that happened here in CRLBF. from a week ago. And that's only 4 days because we had Monday off. So that's how you take advantage of buying the dip anytime you get a rip. One key thing, like I said earlier, and I can't emphasize it enough because I used to do this a lot, you can't beat yourself up. If you're going to sit there and beat yourself up and be like, damn, I missed that spike. The stock spiked 35% without me. This is so upsetting. I could have been, whatever you put in. If you put in $1,000, you could have made $350 there. So I could have been $350 richer. Now I'm not. Oh my God. That is a perfect example of a bad attitude. And I used to do it. That's the only reason why I can explain this to you guys. I think every human being has these instincts. And sometimes I still do it when I miss a play. But I'm trying to get better with calming myself down and really only going for these plays when they get big dips, especially if it just ripped 35%. You can't chase the stock. Once it's up, it's up. Don't go after it anymore. Wait for it, see the dip, let the dip hold, and then go. So that's how we were able to take advantage of CRLBF. Big spike, come back down to 115, buy the dip, sell the rip. Boom. That's how you do it. You want to hold overnight? You can. You would have made even more money. So that's a great example. Just make sure you're buying the dip and not buying the rip. Because if you bought at any moment here, you still could have profited the next day, but at the same time, you put yourself in a bad situation because this could easily come down and never come back up. So you always want to be aware of what's going on. You got to be watching the sector leader. That's number one, and making sure that sector leader, it does what it does. And if it does, then you go after all the little ones around it. So that's the first example. It's catching the dip. The next example, we went a little lighter in this, so like I said, I was looking to try to get around 10K. Only got $3,500, so not too much shares filled on this one, but we were able to take advantage of it because it was a lagger. And what I mean by that is this one was delayed. So all the other stocks were spiking. AYRWF was not. So when that happens, you got to find one that hasn't spiked yet, like MJNA did 2 days ago. You could have made a good amount of money on MJNA if you found that one. AYRWF was one of those situations that you could have taken advantage of when all the other ones are spiking. So all the other ones were having big days. This is pretty much the day. It was Thursday to Friday. Now, Friday, MSOS gapped up, and it was a nice gap up, and it was pushing a little bit in the morning. So in my eyes, what should have happened? Every cannabis stock should have gapped up, and most of them did. GTBIF, TCNNF, Curl Left, all the big name ones, they gapped up and they pushed in the morning. But guess what? I found one that didn't. Wait, is this even the same one? Yeah. I found one that didn't, and that was AYRWF. And like I was saying, all the other ones gapped up from this spot. Remember, this closed at 135. It has a clear support at 134. So you have a clear support here. You have a close of 135, and then you have the sector leader, MSOS, gapping up, and you have all the other stocks across the board gapping up. So now you got to find the one that isn't gapping. This one did show a gap up at 150, but it came right back down. And for some reason, it sat there for a second, and it did. And I was so intrigued by it because I couldn't believe this one wasn't up at all. It was literally up, I think, 5% or so. It was barely up. No, it wasn't even up 5%. At this point, it was only up like 2%, but it gapped up 5%. But the rest of them gapped up even bigger. So now it's only up 2%. You have a clear cut down here at 135. You know sector momentum's on your side. So we decided to get in at 139. So we pretty much got in right here, right when it dipped under 140, and it was almost the picture perfect spot. Then we also had the picture perfect sell because once we got in, we wanted to see it pass high day and rip. And it had a hard time at high day. And then what was even worse was the sector leader, MSOS, started to come back down. So this was the Friday where it gapped up and then it came down. So the stock gapped up, the sector leader, but then it came down throughout the day. And when it came down, we wouldn't want to mess with it. You don't want to fight against sector momentum because once it starts to dry off, it really can get ugly. So the whole goal was, let's see what MSOS does. Let's see what the rest of the cannabis stocks do. And I got a good spot here at 139. If they don't do much, we're going to get out. If this doesn't break past 150, we're going to get out. So we had signs to get out, and we actually got out at pretty much a picture perfect spot of 149.5. So I mean, literally we grabbed the top of that situation, and that's just being a cannabis person for a while now. That's just being in this game for a while now. You're never really going to guess the bottom of the top, but we almost did here. I mean, we got in right here, and we sold out right there. It's an amazing buy and sell, even though it was only 7%. If we would have got the full 10K here, we would have ended up making like $800. So that was the whole goal, was to make that much. Unfortunately, we didn't, but we were able to get the bag. And this is a good example of, like I said, the delayed lagger. There's always going to be one, usually one. There could be more, but for the most part, there's usually going to be one that you want to be able to watch, keep an eye on, and then when it does come back around, you strike at it. Guess what else was great about this stock? It took the big morning dip. Midday dip, and MSOS took the dip with it. And guess what? Great opportunity. You could have got in at 125, 123, any of these spots right here using one low day as cut, and you would have ended up making another 15% if you held on the bounce. So there's so much opportunity in this. We made 7%. We honestly missed this dip. Like I said, it was on its third green day, and I was a little nervous about it. But that's the beauty of sector momentum. It doesn't slow down. It usually continues to run. And it did. It literally came down to 125 and then continued to spike and continue to run all the way above 135 to 140 and then to 145 close. So you could have got in at 125, got at 145. That's almost 20%. That's like 15% on your money. Really good opportunity there. Really, really good opportunity on the dip. So this is a good example of a delayed mover, and you buy the delayed one, you sell it, and this is even a better example of buying the dip again, and it dips midday. You try to get in at any moment around there, and then it ends up spiking and coming all the way back. So much opportunity with the sector momentum, and it's usually one of those times you don't want to step away from the screens. A lot of the times you want to step away from the screens midday. I'm not going to lie. It's not a good idea. In a day like today, you're going to do nothing but lose in a day like today if you're in front of the screens. It's just going to hurt your account. But if you stay patient and you wait for the right opportunity, you're always going to make money. But on a day like this, where cannabis sector momentum or any type of sector momentum is going on, you almost don't want to ever leave the screens. You want to pretty much be glued to them. You want to have your pedal to the metal, and you want to just continue to strike at it. So that is a great example of, like I said, both the delayed lagger and then the panic or the dip, the midday dip buy the dip situation in sector momentum. So next time these come around, because they will come around again. Next time they do, be ready. Be ready. They are going to come around again. So be ready.